Lessons on Psychology by Carl Jung. A human being would certainly not grow to be 70 or 80 years old if this longevity had no meaning for the species. The afternoon of human life must also have a significance of its own and cannot be merely a pitiful appendage to life's morning. A man who has not passed through the inferno of his passions has never overcome them. A particularly beautiful woman is a source of terror. As a rule, a beautiful woman is a terrible disappointment. A psychoneurosis must be understood, ultimately, as the suffering of a soul which has not discovered its meaning. As far as we can discern, the sole purpose of human existence is to kindle a light in the darkness of mere being. Dreams are the guiding words of the soul. Why should I henceforth not love my dreams and not make their riddling images into objects of my daily consideration? Even a happy life cannot be without a measure of darkness, and the word happy would lose its meaning if it were not balanced by sadness. It is far better take things as they come along with patience and equanimity. Every form of addiction is bad, no matter whether the narcotic be alcohol, morphine or idealism. The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. Everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves. For a young person, it is almost a sin, or at least a danger, to be too preoccupied with himself, but for the aging person, it is a duty and a necessity to devote serious attention to himself. How can I be substantial if I do not cast a shadow? I must have a dark side also if I am to be whole. I am not what happened to me, I am what I choose to become. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. I have treated many hundreds of patients, among those in the second half of life. If one does not understand a person, one tends to regard him as a fool. If there is anything that we wish to change in the child, we should first examine it and see whether it is not something that could better be changed in ourselves. In all chaos there is a cosmos, in all disorder a secret order. In my case, Pilgrim's Progress consisted in my having to climb down 1,000 ladders until I could reach out my hand to the little clod of earth that I am. Is rejected from the self, appears in the world as an event. It all depends on how we look at things, and not how they are in themselves. It is a fact that cannot be denied. The wickedness of others becomes our own wickedness because it kindles something evil in our own hearts. Knowing your own darkness is the best method for dealing with the darknesses of other people. Knowledge rests not upon truth alone, but upon error also. Loneliness does not come from having no people about one, but from being unable to communicate the things that seem important to oneself, or from holding certain views which others find inadmissible. Man needs difficulties, they are necessary for health. Man's task is to become conscious of the contents that press upward from the unconscious. Masses are always breeding grounds of psychic epidemics. Mistakes are, after all, the foundations of truth, and if a man does not know what a thing is, it is at least an increase in knowledge if he knows what it is not. Neurosis is always a substitute for legitimate suffering. No tree, it is said, can grow to heaven unless its roots reach down to hell. In all chaos there is a cosmos, in all disorder a secret order. Nobody, as long as he moves about among the chaotic currents of life, is without trouble. Often the hands will solve a mystery that the intellect has struggled with in vain. One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. One looks back with appreciation to the brilliant teachers, but with gratitude to those who touched our human feelings. The curriculum is so much necessary raw material, but warmth is the vital element for the growing plant and for the soul of the child. People will do anything, no matter how absurd, in order to avoid facing their own souls. One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. Resistance to the organized mass can be effected only by the man who is as well organized in his individuality as the mass itself. Show me a sane man and I will cure him for you. The collective unconscious consists of the sum of the instincts and their correlates, the archetypes. Just as everybody possesses instincts, so he also possesses a stock of archetypal images. The creation of something new is not accomplished by the intellect but by the play instinct acting from inner necessity. The creative mind plays with the objects it loves. The debt we owe to the play of imagination is incalculable. The greatest and most important problems of life are all fundamentally insoluble. They can never be solved but only outgrown. The greatest tragedy of the family is the unlived lives of the parents. The healthy man does not torture others. The least of things with a meaning is worth more in life than the greatest of things without it. The man who promises everything is sure to fulfill nothing, and everyone who promises too much is in danger of using evil means in order to carry out his promises, and is already on the road to perdition. The meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed. The most intense conflicts, if overcome, leave behind a sense of security and calm that is not easily disturbed. It is just these intense conflicts and their conflagration which are needed to produce valuable and lasting results. The most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely. The pendulum of the mind oscillates between sense and nonsense, not between right and wrong. The shoe that fits one person pinches another. There is no recipe for living that suits all cases. The word belief is a difficult thing for me. I don't believe. I must have a reason for a certain hypothesis. Either I know a thing, and then I know it. The word happy would lose its meaning if it were not balanced by sadness. There is no coming to consciousness without pain. There is no such thing as a pure introvert or extrovert. Such a person would be in the lunatic asylum. There's no coming to consciousness without pain. Thinking is difficult, that's why most people judge. Through pride we are ever deceiving ourselves. But deep down below the surface of the average conscience a still, small voice says to us, something is out of tune. We are born at a given moment, in a given place and, like vintage years of wine, we have the qualities of the year and of the season of which we are born. Astrology does not lay claim to anything more. We cannot change anything until we accept it. Condemnation does not liberate, it oppresses. We deem those happy who from the experience of life have learned to bear its ills without being overcome by them. We shall probably get nearest to the truth if we think of the conscious and personal psyche as resting upon the broad basis of an inherited and universal psychic disposition which is as such unconscious, and that our personal psyche bears the same relation to the collective psyche as the individual to society.